everybody, welcome again. So, is this third time lucky, Josh? Something like that. It seems like it, but anyway.
Yeah, it's second recording, but I think third
Yeah,
time arranged.
yeah. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us again, Josh. You
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, very well,
Yeah.
thank you.
How's your
Well, how
weather
are you?
over? How's your weather over there?
A bit grey today, pretty dark, but
Well, we've had rain today as well. So, right, okay. So, we're here today with Josh from JD Performance Coaching, and Josh has kindly agreed to go through some of the questions that we had posted on a video a few weeks back now. So we've got 5 questions, I believe. So do you want to just introduce yourself, Josh, and say a little bit about yourself first?
yeah. So as Duncan said, my name is Josh. I run a cycling coaching company called JD Performance. We're running for a couple of years, doing coaching. And yeah, we coach all levels of ability, regardless if you're racing or if your goal is just to get fitter or ride 100 miles. We work with any level of cyclist.
And what's your background in cycling, Josh?
So I've been cycling for about 8 to 10 years, I guess. So since my childhood, really, on a road bike.
Yeah.
I race. I race to an elite level on the road, and yeah.
Great. Good stuff. So I suppose we should say, shouldn't we, that you are currently coaching me, so you are my coach.
Indeed.
So let's jump into the questions. So first question's from Critwit Cycling over in America, United States. So he says, Duncan, what are my 2020 A, B and C races that I'm training for, and how is Josh dialing me in for those in terms of functional threshold, power and heart rate? So my main race, my A race, is Fred Whitton, isn't it? So Fred Whitton is June the 7th, is it, next year? So that's my A race. Pardon me. B races. Pardon me. We're going to have a few sportives thrown into the mix. There's one called the Lakeland Loop. There's another one that might be the Tour of Pembrokeshire. There's a few different ones that are hillier sportives that I'm aiming for. And then C races, I suppose you could class the Zwift races as C races, couldn't you, really? So then I suppose it's over to you, Josh, and how you're going to tie all that in.
Yeah. So, like you said, the A race or the A goal is the Fred Whitton in early June. So the starting point for that was to break down the demands of the race or the ride to really sort of see what it's all about and really look at what we need to work on. With you, it's good that you've ridden it before. You know the demands of the event, and you have a good idea of what's needed, what you need to improve on, what you're already quite good on. So we had a good base there, and then over the coming 6 months we've got until the event. It'll just be working on the specific points that we need to work on for the demands of the event. So it's obviously really, really long. A lot of steep climbs, a lot of steep long climbs. So it's going to be working on that sort of overgeared, high torque climbing, like you have on Hard Knot Pass after 90 miles or whatever it is at 33%. It's working on the specifics of the event for that particular goal.
How are you sort of going to break that down into timing wise, which he might be getting at, I think, as well?
So from where we are now, what we've decided to do is sort of keep a good level of fitness over the next few weeks, and then at the start of January, because of things going on in your life, we're going to take a little bit of downtime, recover from this year, and then from there, when we come back into real training around the start of February, that gives us 4 months to work, and then generally we'll break things down into different blocks of 3 to 4 weeks, then a recovery week, and then 3 to 4 weeks. And generally what we'll look to do is work on a specific aspect of the riding, a specific demand of the event, work on that for those 3 to 4 week blocks, not neglecting the other parts as well, but more sort of dialing into one specific part. And then, as we get closer to the event, we have the Tour of Pembrokeshire, which I think is 2 weeks before, which would be a good marker to see where we are, and then we can sort of taper back and then hit the Fred Whitton pretty full on.
Yep, great. I think that's answered that one for Critwit. So thanks, Critwit. So on to the next question. Ian Outdoors Recovery. How does he come up with a training plan as a newbie aiming to do some long distance events next year?
Yeah, so it's quite a common question to ask, because generally people just, when they start, they just go out and ride their bikes, and that's kind of it. There's no thought behind how to train or how to plan your training. So it's a really good question. I'd break it down into 5 specific things to work on or to look at. So the first one being your time restrictions and your time requirements, because a lot of people generally think they have more time to train, more time to ride than they actually do, forgetting that the majority of us have full-time jobs, we have families, and we have social lives that we have to factor in, because you see quite a lot that people will just train loads and loads and loads, neglect the other parts of their lives, and they'll burn out and not enjoy what they're doing, and then they'll sort of stop riding, or they'll realize that the training plan they've created doesn't work, and that can be quite demotivating. You can build yourself into quite a big hole that is quite difficult to get out of. So you need to be 100% honest with yourself about the time you have, and write down the time that you're going to be at work. So if you work a 9 to 5 job, write it down, write how long your commute is, write how much family time you need to factor in, and then you can work around that, and you can build your training plans around everything going on in your life. So that's number one. Secondly, think about the goals, what you want to achieve next year. You mentioned in the question some long distance events. So look at those, like we touched upon with the Fred Whitton for you, Duncan, about how we break down the demands of the event. Do that for your own individual events. Look at the terrain. Are they hilly? Is it flat? How long is it? Is it single day events or multi-day events? And from there you can really break down the demands and really focus in on what you need to work on. Because if you've got just say 100-mile sporty that you're looking to do, or you're looking to do some Audax riding, so over really long distances of 200, 300, 400, 500 kilometers, you're not going to be focusing on your max sprint power. Rather, you're going to be focusing on your endurance side of things. So break down the demands of the events, and when you think about the goals, and that ties into the third point. Be specific with your training. After you've broken down the demands of the event, you can really look at what you need to be working on. So with Duncan, we have a lot of climbing, a lot of steep climbing, so we work on low cadence, high torque efforts to really to not make it a surprise when you get to the event and you realize, oh, this isn't what I've been doing. This is completely different. You're using different muscles, and yeah, you're just totally underprepared. So be specific with the training. The next thing, so the fourth thing I'd say, is test regularly. Every 6 to 8 weeks, test yourself. So if you have a power meter, it's really easy to do, say, an FTP test or a power curve test where you test your 1 minute, your 5 minute, your 20-minute power, and then you can really see where you're improving and where perhaps you're lacking. Also to test before you start the training, so you can really see where the differences are. I also write blogs which do appear on my website. Recently I wrote one about power curve testing, so if you want to know a little bit more, head over to my website and you'll be able to find it there. And then the fifth and final thing I would say is perhaps the most important, perhaps the most overlooked thing, is factor in your rest. Because when you're resting, that's when you're getting better. Your body is absorbing all of the workload and all the effort that you've put it under, and that's when you get better. If you're just continually riding, not resting, not recovering, then you just dig yourself into a hole and you don't improve. You generally get worse because you're just fatigued all the time. And I think it's something a lot of us have done. I personally have just ignored rest completely, and just ridden myself into holes which have been taken ages to get out of. So factor in your rest, factor in your recovery. And yeah, I think we all have. So yeah, it's a really important one. Factor in your rest, factor in your recovery. But yeah, if you've got any questions about any more questions or any specifics about making a training plan or anything, just my email is on the website, or just drop me a message and I would be happy to help.
Right, great. So on to the next one then. So the next question is from Brendan O'Regan. Sorry, no, I've missed out Bozza 90 2009's question. Let's find that one first. So, because we jumped ahead slightly. Here we go. So Bozza's been riding for around a year or so. He's a 38-year-old and he thinks he's pretty fit. Doesn't have a parameter, just uses heart rate monitor. But he thinks that his heart rate is high, generally in the 165 plus range. No big issue, as he can happily sit at that for long times. It just seems that it's higher than other riders, even riders a lot younger than him. His maximum heart rate is currently 195 and his resting heart rate is about 60. Just curious, and whether it's something that he needs to work on, or if he's just got to accept it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what I'd say is I wouldn't personally worry about it, because heart rate is such an individual thing. It's completely personal to you. It varies greatly from individual to individual. Heart rate's affected by so many factors, such as how many coffees you've had in the morning, how fatigued you are, or how rested you are. So there's how hot it is as well, can have an effect. So I really wouldn't worry about it. Generally, if your resting heart rate is over 100 beats per minute, it's recommended to go and get that checked out and make sure everything's okay. But for individuals between 18 to 45, it's pretty normal to have a working heart rate of between 100 and 160, 165. Just to give an example, for myself, I'm 22. Generally on a normal ride, I average anywhere from between 135 beats per minute to 158. I've had races in the past where I've sort of been 175 beats per minute, 180 beats per minute for over 4 hours. So yeah, I wouldn't particularly worry about it. If you are worried, go and get it checked out. Just go and have some blood tests done, just to negate any worrying. So yeah, I'd say it's pretty.
Yeah, just
It's pretty
speak
okay.
to your GP. I think that's
Yeah.
the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And they go from there.
So Brendan says he's time limited during the week to 3 1-hour sessions and a club spin on a Sunday. What's the best way to keep ticking over in the winter months on the trainer? Uses Swift but doesn't know which sessions he should be doing. Currently he's doing the 4-week FTP booster plan. But this will be taking longer to do due to time restraints.
Yeah, so firstly, one thing that's really important during the winter to keep ticking over, as you put it, is consistency. Keep consistent in your training. So in the question it's written 3 1-hour sessions and a club spin. That's perfect, because you keep that consistency rather than having 1 week where you do those 4 rides and then 2 weeks where you do nothing, and then that just it spoils things a little bit for next year and things you want to do next year. But actually going on to the question, the 3 1-hour or the 3 1-hour sessions on the indoor trainer, the Zwift is a great tool for winter training. When the weather's bad outside and it's dark, you can jump on and you can socialize with people. You can do the workouts, like you mentioned, the 4-week FTP booster. You can do Zwift have so many workouts that you can do to keep ticking over. The 4-week FTP booster is a really good place to start, especially with your time restrictions of 1 hour, because the majority of the sessions are 1 hour or less, and you get good bang for your buck with them. It's a really good place to start, and I don't think it matters at all to spread them out over a slightly longer period, because it works best for what you can do. But then also you might want to sort of jump into a Zwift race or a group workout or a group ride, just because they're good fun and they're good ways to keep training, to keep riding without going outside and getting cold and wet in the winter months.
It's a bit of variety as well, isn't it? Stop you getting bored, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah. And I think over the last few years, with the advancement in technology with the smart trainers, it really does feel like you're riding outside a lot of the time with the changing gradients. So it's a lot more fun than it used to be just staring at a wall for an hour. It's quite difficult to do sometimes, but yeah, I think Zwift's a great tool for it.
Right, okay, so Ian West's question. Where are we? Should you dial back on intensity when you get into your 60s and 70s, as next year he's going to be doing a 200, a 300, a 400 and hopefully a 600 kilometre Audax? What type of turbo training sessions should he be doing? Everything that he sees seems to be aimed at racers and not endurance riders. Thanks in advance for any answer.
Yeah, so to answer the first part of the question about dialing back on intensity when you get into your 60s and 70s, it is recommended to dial it back a little bit, but not to completely ignore it. As you get older, your body takes more time to recover, therefore you'll need to have more rest between your hard rides, or you have to have more recovery between efforts during a ride. But like I said, don't completely ignore it. I did a little bit of digging into this question, and I came across a study that was published in 2017, which has a very catchy title, which is called Enhanced protein translation underlies improved metabolic and physical adaptations to different exercise training modes in young and old humans. And basically, what this study found was that participants who underwent interval training significantly changed their they significantly changed activity levels in genes that influenced mitochondrial health. So the group of cyclists especially saw big results. In other words, the decline in health of muscle cells, which is associated with aging, was protected and sometimes even reversed in the individuals who cycled. So, it's no surprise to any of us, I'm sure, that cycling is good for you. So continue to do it. I read another study as well in the journal called Aging Cells, which reported that cyclists between 55 and 79 experienced a slower decline in muscle mass, more stable testosterone levels, preserved strength and constant body fat levels, improved cholesterol levels. And as you age, your thymus, an organ that produces T cells, it shrinks. T cells participate in your immune response to antigens, and the cyclists who appeared in this study appeared to make as many T cells as younger individuals. So, continue to do the intensity training, because studies show that it's good for you to still do it. And then moving on to the second part of the question, you're right, there is a lot of indoor workouts tailored more towards people who race. Generally, they're high intensity interval training, but for an audax, there is sessions you can do. It's a little bit harder because obviously with an audax of 200, 300, 400, 600 kilometers, the main focus of your training will be on endurance riding. So riding for a long period of time at a relatively low intensity. But what you can look at doing is raising your FTP will still be good. So you're raising your functional threshold power. So if you do a lot of work at your sweet spot zone or sweet spot level, which is just below functional threshold power, it can significantly improve your ability to resist fatigue over substantial lengths of time. So that would be really good for long distance miles, because if you think about your FTP as a ceiling basically, and if you push your FTP up by doing these sweet spot sessions and getting fitter that way, then the ceiling rate rises, and the powers that you will ride at during an audax, during a long distance ride, will feel easier, and you'll be able to sustain them for a longer period of time. So I'd look to work on your sweet spot zones and tempo and that kind of area. So an example session would be 3 by 20 minutes a sweet spot, which is like quite a standard session, or a sweet spot pyramid where you do 5 minute sweet spot, 10 minute sweet spot, 20-minute sweet spot, and then come back down off the top and back down to 5 minutes, or decreasing recovery sweet spot blocks, which is a session that I really like, where it's 10 minutes on, 8 minutes off, 10 minutes on, 6 minutes off, and basically your recovery decreases by 2 minutes each time for each effort. So I hope that answers that question, to look at sort of that kind of area of training.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Josh. So I think that's everybody's questions answered, isn't it? Hopefully everybody's got something out of that, and other viewers will find it useful as well. So thanks for joining me today, Josh, and going through those.
Pleasure.
Thank you for watching, everybody. See you in the next vlog. Bye for now. Oh yeah, stop recording.